Nice to see you.
Thank you very much for being here. Are you actually a little nervous?
I am so bloody nervous.
Really?
Come on. You got nothing to be nervous about.
That's right.
I'm nervous.
You have nothing to be nervous about. Why would you be nervous?
Well, because you've been ripping on me for, 7 years.
Lisa Marie Presley eventually told the world at the age of 54 about her lowest points. She put her son's remains on dry ice for 2 months after he committed suicide. Her most startling admission, however, wasn't that. She acknowledged that in order to function, she had to mix 80 painkiller tablets with cocaine each day. She almost died several times because, to her addiction, the comas, heart failure, and seizures were all linked to a suffering that began decades before. Finally, the truth about what truly destroyed Elvis Presley's daughter came to light. On February 1st, 1968, Lisa Marie Presley was born in Memphis, Tennessee. She was born as Priscilla Presley and Elvis Presley's only child. She was the center of attention from the moment of her birth. Her mother was only 22 years old, and her father was the most well-known singer alive. Lisa Marie inherited inheritance in addition to money. She became the only heir to Graceland after Elvis' death in 1977. The estate was valued at more than $100 million by the time she turned 25. The world would never forget her name, fame, and wealth. However, beneath the wealth lay a childhood of stress, bewilderment, and bereavement. She was surrounded by enchantment and music during her first few years at Graceland. She was loved by Elvis. He provided her with attention, toys, and horses. They went out for ice cream late at night and rode around the property together. His world revolved around her, but it was short-lived. Lisa's parents divorced when she was 4 years old in 1972. Every move was covered by the media. Her family's drama was transformed into public rumors by cameras and reporters. She appeared in a fairy tale one day. Her world was torn in two the next day. Lisa Marie started alternating between 2 residences following the divorce. She flew back to Memphis to see her father after staying with her mother in Los Angeles. There was no greater contrast between the 2 locations. She was in Hollywood with Priscilla, surrounded by celebrities and actors. She went back to the South with Elvis, where everything was both familiar and unsteady. She found herself torn between 2 worlds, 2 parents, and 2 life. She was unsure of her true place. She turned to music as an escape. She liked Elvis Presley's gentle tunes like Love Me Tender and Don't Cry Daddy, but she also admired his history. She also adored musicians like David Cassidy and Elton John. She was able to cope with her loneliness thanks to their melodies. Her destiny was shaped by these early influences. The same emotional honesty and suffering would subsequently be present in her own songs, but none of it could shield her from what was about to happen. In her mother's memoir, she described how Lisa would cry over the phone late at night due to the distance between her parents' public pressure and the frequent flying back and forth. She was disoriented. Then came the most terrible time of her life. August 16, 1977 was the day that everything changed. The age of Lisa Marie was 9. She discovered her father lying face down in his toilet while she was inside Graceland. There was no Elvis Presley. He was just 42. In a place she was never meant to be, Lisa discovered him laying there, dead. The door to the bathroom was always closed. However, when she entered that morning, she witnessed a scene she would never forget. Chaos broke out in the house. Paramedics arrived quickly. Lifting Elvis onto a stretcher required multiple men. Lisa let out a scream and attempted to chase him. Desperate to be close to him, she kicked and struggled despite adults holding her back. As they dragged him out, she never saw his face. Later, she claimed that while it was a minor relief not to see him in that state, the pain persisted. The sound of her grandfather's voice filled the house. Your father is no longer with you. He is no longer there. The most significant individual in her life just disappeared. This was exactly what Lisa had always feared would occur. She had penned poems that included phrases like, "I hope my father lives." She had a feeling something wasn't right. She had saw him being ill. She had witnessed him fainting. Even as a little child, she was aware that something was seriously wrong. Her poems turned into a warning that nobody heeded until it was too late. Lisa did not immediately receive Elvis's wealth after his death. A trust was established for the estate. It wasn't given to her until she was 25. Her great-grandmother and grandfather had passed away by that time. She was the sole surviving heir as a result. The estate had expanded by the time she received the bequest in 1993. It was currently valued at about $100 million. She rose to become one of the nation's wealthiest young ladies. However, money couldn't make the anguish go away. Lisa was candid in her memoir. Well, that one sentence showed how broken I am, she remarked. She had lost her youth. She knew that the one person who gave her a sense of security would never return. She needed to mature quickly. She did, but the wounds persisted. Lisa Marie felt even more alienated in high school. She completely left school when she was 16 or 17 years old in 1984 or 1985. She subsequently characterized this choice as the start of her period of self-destruction, at which time her life swiftly became enmeshed in punk rock, drugs, and suffering. From her chamber came the sounds of bands like the Sex Pistols and Devo. She drowned her perplexity and anguish with them. About her true identity, Priscilla was the first to notice the changes. Nothing was able to stop the spiral, so she enrolled Lisa Marie in a school run by Scientology in the hopes that it would help. Lisa Marie subsequently acknowledged that she was scarred for years by the drugs and her rebellious behavior. She resisted people's attempts to control her more and more. Lisa Marie started seeing a 23-year-old man when she was just 14. It was a relationship based on confusion and loneliness. She was looking for love, escape, but rather than caring for her, the man snapped compromising pictures of her and sold them. The impact was severe because Lisa Marie was already at risk, and this betrayal broke her heart. She reached her breaking point as a result of the humiliation caused by the pictures. She attempted suicide that year by ingesting 20 Valium tablets. She was just 14. Her mother's pressure, the anguish of losing her father, and now the disgrace in public all became too much. Everyone in her immediate vicinity eventually realized how much she was suffering as a result of her overdose. Lisa Marie continued to use drugs in 1985 when she turned 17. Priscilla took a risk. She enrolled her daughter in the Los Angeles Celebrity Center of Scientology. The facility didn't provide conventional rehabilitation. Dianetics, structure, and peer mentorship were employed instead. At first, Lisa Marie resisted. She later acknowledged that she secluded herself in her room for the first 4 days while intoxicated. However, when she was asked to mentor another adolescent, something changed. She found purpose in that minor duty. It was the first indication of significant shift. In 1986, Lisa Marie officially committed herself to Scientology on her 18th birthday. She attributed her recovery from addiction to the church. She made it her new home. It provided her with a tribe and a means of self-repair. However, the cost was exorbitant. Scientology had a firm hold. It required complete control, loyalty, and secrecy. For many years, Lisa Marie remained with the church despite the growing number of inquiries and criticisms directed at her. She eventually renounced Scientology in 2013. She acknowledged that she had been duped and said it was excessive. Nevertheless, it was the only location in her life that had given her motivation to continue. In her devastating book, From Here to the Great Unknown, Lisa Marie Presley describes how she was abused beginning when she was just 10 years old. In the late 1970s, Priscilla's father, her boyfriend Michael Edwards, an actor who starred in movies like Mommy Dearest and The Terminator, started sexually assaulting her. Lisa Marie, who was still in shock over the death of her father, Elvis Presley, was going through a difficult period. One night, she says, she woke up to discover Edwards on his knees, inappropriately caressing her beneath the sheets. She learned to wiggle to get him to leave since he would stop if she moved. Years of trauma that painfully impacted her life began with this initial episode. It was not an isolated incident of abuse. She had bruises from Edwards' frequent nighttime visits to her bedroom, where he touched and sometimes spanked her. He would instruct her not to turn her head or look at him, which made her feel even more scared and confused as a child. The encounter was all the more terrible since she thought he was enjoying himself at these moments. Lisa Marie eventually worked up the nerve to tell her mother, presenting the bruises to Priscilla as evidence. However, She didn't need the response. When Priscilla confronted Edwards, he offered feeble justifications, such as that he was intoxicated or, startlingly, that he was being flirted with by 10-year-old Lisa Marie. Rather than taking decisive action, Priscilla set up a humiliating apology session in which Edwards sulked and defended himself while sitting on the bed. As a result, Lisa Marie felt vulnerable and blamed in her own house, bearing a burdensome guilt that no youngster should ever experience. Not only was the abuse sexual, but it continued for years. A dining room chair was thrown at Lisa Marie by Edwards, who had a violent temper and struck her in the back. She felt alone and afraid as living in what ought to have been a safe place turned into a nightmare. There was a toll from the ongoing violation and dread, making a contribution to her eventual mental health issues. Her early years were marred by Edwards' presence, which made it difficult for her to feel loved or safe. The way Edwards attempted to defend his behavior is maybe the most repulsive aspect of the narrative. When questioned, he said that this is how children are taught in Europe, as though his mistreatment constituted some perverse kind of schooling. This ludicrous justification demonstrates the extent to which he twisted reality to make his actions appear normal in order to avoid accountability. In addition to causing Lisa Marie pain, these lies also made her feel alone. Compelled to cope with the abuse and his deceptive remarks without adequate assistance from the grown-ups in his immediate vicinity. When Lisa Marie Presley married Danny Keough in 1988, she was just 20 years old. She had met him at the Church of Scientology's Celebrity Center. He was a quiet, gifted bassist, but he wasn't a celebrity. Not even her mother Priscilla attended their very intimate wedding. They decided to live a low-key existence away from the limelight that her father used to command. They had 2 kids shortly after. Benjamin was born in 1992 and Riley in 1989. Riley would later pursue a career in acting. As a silent echo of Elvis, Benjamin would bear the Presley name. It appeared like Lisa Marie was looking for normalcy. She had never felt so secure and at peace in her life as she did in that marriage. She started penning songs in those years. She didn't show anyone at first. She was afraid of what other people would think of her. She wasn't prepared for the comparisons that would accompany any musical endeavor because she was the daughter of Elvis. She once claimed that the burden of her father's legacy immobilized her. She continued to write in private, though. Although her lyrics were brimming with unfiltered emotions, she kept them to herself, uncertain if they were good enough. Fame wasn't the point. She desired for her music to be authentic rather than something that was given to her simply because of her name. The 6-year marriage to Danny spanned the years 1988-1994. He continued in her life despite their separation. He wasn't merely an ex-husband. He was someone she could trust, helped with her music, and helped her get through difficult times. However, Lisa Marie sought to discover who she was by the early 1990s. She was not yet her own person, but she had been a mother, a wife, and a daughter. The May 1994 divorce wasn't a bad one. It was just a watershed moment. She was prepared to leave the shadows and live her life as she saw fit. She started to take her music more seriously at that point. David Foster and Linda Thompson were among her friends who had faith in her. Linda was aware of the pressure Lisa Marie was experiencing because she had known Elvis. David had collaborated with such icons as Celine Dion and Whitney Houston. She began recording demos and gradually gained the confidence to reveal what she had been keeping for years. The seeds were sown during this time of self-discovery, but it would take her over 10 years to release her first album in 2003. Then one of the most startling events in her life occurred. Why? On May 26th, just 3 weeks after divorcing Danny on April 29, she wed Michael Jackson. In a tiny hotel room in the Dominican Republic, it took place behind closed doors. Not even Priscilla knew, nor did any family members or guests. Months later, the world was in disbelief when the news broke. Michael and Lisa Marie had been friends since she watched him perform in Las Vegas in 1975 when she was 7 years old. Early in the 1990s, they reconnected, and their relationship quickly developed into something more. Michael relied heavily on Lisa Marie throughout the 1993 child abuse crisis. He called her all the time. He made a proposal during one of those calls. It was not romantic. It's only a passionate and urgent phone call, no big occasion. It seemed weird, she stated afterwards, almost desperate. The timing, many thought, was no accident. According to media speculation, Michael viewed Lisa Marie as a means of improving his public persona. She did, however, say yes. They were silent for about 3 months following the wedding. However, the story took off when the media learned about it. Everything was questioned. Was it authentic? Was it a show? Priscilla expressed her disgust openly. She thought the marriage was less about love and more about business. She even suspected that Lisa Marie's father's name was the reason Michael was attracted to her. Supporters were split. Some believed it to be real. Some believed it to be a deliberate action. Later on, Lisa Marie would reveal a shocking detail. When they first started dating, she said Michael informed her he was still a virgin. He claimed to have only flirted with Brooke Shields and kissed Tatum O'Neal. He asserted that the Madonna report was untrue. Lisa Marie was taken aback. She didn't know how to respond. Their relationship progressed swiftly. They shared a home and had a strong emotional bond. When they were alone, Michael abandoned his public persona. No one else saw the version of him that she did, passionate, vulnerable, and occasionally brave. However, the magic was short-lived. The marriage terminated in divorce in August 1996 after only 20 months. According to Lisa Marie, there was more than one factor that led to the breakup. Confusion, stress, and emotional tiredness were all mixed together. Priscilla was adamant that the marriage had been more of a business deal than a romantic one. Lisa Marie remained silent. "The truth is complicated," she remarked. What had begun as a strong connection turned into something neither of them could maintain. Was yet another traumatic period in her life brought in her life forward. Heartbreak was the result of yet another attempt at connection. For her entire life, Lisa Marie Presley aspired to be heard according to her own preferences. She eventually released her debut album, To Whom It May Concern, on April 8, 2003. It was impossible to predict what people would expect. It sounded to some like the music of her father. Others thought it would be disappointing, but everyone was taken aback by the record. In its first week of release, it sold over 142,000 copies and debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200. That was no trivial matter. It sold over 500,000 copies in just 3 months, making it a success. It was an audacious move into her own spotlight for someone who had been raised in Elvis Presley's shadow. Lisa Marie was unique in more ways than one. The lyrics were almost entirely her own, and contributed to the composition of all the melodies, with the exception of The Road Between. This was not an act of vanity. The tunes have an honest, unvarnished feel, painfully so at times. She sung about family, celebrity, and sadness, particularly in the song Nobody Noticed It, which is about her father. Although it wasn't flawless, her voice was genuine. Critics were taken aback since they were expecting fluff. Rolling Stone even referred to the lyrics as incisive and surprisingly candid. This was more than just Lisa Marie's first appearance. It was a proclamation. Lights Out, her debut hit, took off right away. On the Billboard Hot Adult Top 40, the single peaked at number 18, and the UK's number 16. It dealt with death, remembrance, and the oddity that she was not permitted to visit her father's tomb. The introspective tone and spooky atmosphere of the song struck a chord. On MTV, it was unique and resonated with a wide audience outside of the Elvis acolyte. The response from the UK, in particular, demonstrated that she had something genuine and deeper to contribute. Savior, one of the album's heavier tracks, was a prime example of that same sense of credibility. She and the Smashing Pumpkins' Billy Corgan co-wrote it. His reputation was not one of casual partnerships. It spoke a lot that he chose to collaborate with her. The outcome, which combined her voice with his gloomy manner, was eerie and peculiar. The chemistry shocked even Corgan's most devoted admirers. This was no ordinary pop song. It has an edges of rock-like sound to it. Lisa Marie took it upon herself rather than merely keeping up. She returned with Now, what in 2005, 2 years later. The first album was considered a fluke by some. No, it wasn't. With almost 56,000 copies sold in the first week, she peaked at number 9 on the Billboard 200 this time. Like the prior one, it went gold. But what really shook folks up was her cover of Don Henley's Dirty Laundry. Lisa Marie improved the song rather than merely covering it. Full bring it. The song's lyrics attacked everything, including the media and rumors. Issue had plagued her and her dad for many years. Since she was a young girl, the media had made fun of and followed her. This was her biting answer. Some criticized it for being overly irate. Some referred to it as daring. In any case, people paid attention. Lisa Marie experienced a number of storms in her personal life. One of the most talked about was her marriage to Nicolas Cage. They married on August 10th, 2002. It was the same week as the 25th anniversary of Elvis' death. Cage was a lifelong devotee of Elvis. It gave the duo a strange appearance. They were married for 108 days. That same year, on November 25th, Cage filed for divorce. The separation continued until May 2004. Both of them later realized it was a mistake motivated by passion and clashing egos. It burned fast and ended fiercely. 2006, Lisa Marie married Michael Lockwood. They held a customary ceremony in Japan's Kyoto. She was escorted down the aisle by her mother, Priscilla. Riley and Benjamin, her kids, attended the wedding. She gave birth to twin daughters on October 7th, 2008, 2 years later. Finley and Harper. She was 40 at the time. It should have been a joyous new chapter, and for a while it was. But everything changed after the cesarean section. Doctors gave her painkillers for the pain, and it didn't take long before she sank into addiction. According to her, it began as a pastime but swiftly turned into a jail. At one point, she was taking up to 80 tablets a day. It was a secret she maintained from the public, but not from her children. Later, Riley talked about Lisa Marie's feelings of humiliation. She detested the person she had become. After a seizure left her in the hospital, she finally began to battle her way out. Rehab came next. Then relapses. Then relapse. Next, more recuperation. She suffered from the cycle for years, notwithstanding the suffering she continued to cause. Her last album, Storm and Grace, came out on May 15, 2012. Produced by T-Bone Burnett, was a sudden move towards something deeper and more pared down. The huge pop moments had vanished. Rather, the record has a blues, folk, and country influence. It was hailed by critics as her best creation to date. It felt like the album she was meant to make, according to Rolling Stone. Although it wasn't a blockbuster, it was something bolder and more subdued, and it sold over 9,000 copies when it debuted at number 45 on the Billboard 200 and number 21 on the top rock albums list. Identity and gloom were themes in the songs. For the first time, audiences and critics viewed Lisa Marie as an independent artist as well as Elvis Presley's daughter. Her personal life, too, kept crumbling. The lengthy and acrimonious divorce was the result of the marriage to Michael Lockwood. Despite their 2016 separation, the divorce wasn't finalized until 2021. At the core of it all were their daughters. Under stress, Lisa Marie had relapsed once more. Priscilla took over to look after the girls at one time. After Lisa Marie passed away in 2023, Lockwood finally obtained full custody following protracted legal fights. To pay for legal fees, he even asked her inheritance for more than $150,000. When Lisa Marie Presley's twin girls were born in 2008, she had no idea that her life would fall apart. Opioids were administered to her to help with the discomfort following her cesarean section. However, the alleviation wasn't that easy. Slowly, it became a trap from which she was unable to break free. She soon found herself requiring more and more medications to feel normal. She eventually consumed an astounding 80 opioid pills every day. There was no hearsay about it. In her memoir, From Here to the Great Unknown, she discussed it firsthand. She claimed that she was unable to even determine when her body had had enough. However, everything did come to an end. Always does. Even a considerably less amount, doctors later said, might have killed an unaccustomed person. For surviving it, her therapist referred to her as a miracle. However, the pills weren't the last step. Lisa Marie also started using cocaine to counteract the drowsiness caused by the opioids, not to get high. Using one medicine to wake her up and another to calm her down turned into a perverse ritual. She was exhausted by the cycle and worsened her health. Repeatedly checked into a treatment facility, The monthly cost of some of those institutions can reach $400,000. Riley, her daughter, claimed that no doctor ever truly comprehended the severity of her mother's constant withdrawal symptoms. Lisa spent at least 5 stints in treatment. She prayed that would be the final time each time. It wasn't every single time. She suffered from terrible symptoms. In the major leagues, she referred to it as withdrawal. She felt like her body was being torn apart, vomited up, trembled, and had trouble sleeping. On other days, she admitted, she was aware that she would end up in the hospital or worse. She was given a combination of medications to help her stay clean following one of her treatments. But occasionally, the medicines made her feel even more unsteady. Her body was already exhausted, yet she persisted in trying to recover. Next was her heart. Her heart began to suffer from years of maltreatment. She needed to be transported to the intensive care unit because her heartbeat decreased to a dangerously low level. She was discovered by paramedics at home one night, unconscious and barely breathing. They revived a weak pulse after performing CPR. She fell into a coma while in the hospital. She was later declared temporarily brain dead by doctors. Her brain was no longer receiving oxygen from her heart. A pacemaker was implanted in her. A medical report mentioned opioid use in her system, but attributed her heart problems due to a blockage in her small intestine from previous surgery. Her illness demonstrated the ease with which the heart and brain can malfunction in tandem, particularly in cases of chronic addiction. Lisa Marie didn't begin to realize how dangerous she was until she had a severe seizure. Riley claimed that she was altered by the seizure. Perhaps for the first time, Lisa stopped acting as though her addiction wasn't that awful and started to face it head-on. Seizures are an obvious warning indication that is frequently brought on by overdosing or withdrawal. She had to do something. She tried to get sober once more and underwent additional testing. She stopped denying the reality for once, but the battle was far from over. Then, her life's worst day arrived. Benjamin, her son, committed suicide in July 2020. He was shot at the age of 27. He bore a striking resemblance to his grandpa, Elvis, and brought with him his own battles with addiction and melancholy. Lisa Marie was in ruins. He was the love of her life, she declared. She held herself responsible and was unable to forgive herself. According to her manager, she was unable to communicate following the incident. Even she acknowledged that her daughter's efforts to support her weren't always sufficient. In a guest house on her property, Lisa Marie put Benjamin's remains on dry ice for 2 months. She was unwilling to let go. She waited because California law did not require a hasty burial. The temperature was maintained at about 55 degrees. She would go in and sit with him every day. She spoke to him occasionally. She would sometimes just cry. Later, she acknowledged that it sounded odd, and she even stated that she had a bizarre dream about Benjamin muttering, but it was survival for her. She couldn't bear to say goodbye to her son in the same way that she had lost her father when she was a young girl. Lisa Marie brought a tattoo artist to her house before Benjamin was buried. Riley and she desired to have their bodies covered in replicas of his tattoos. They desired accuracy. So Lisa showed the artist the genuine thing by opening Benjamin's casket. Riley recalled the experience as unreal, claimed that although Lisa didn't care, Benjamin himself would have thought it was crazy. It was her method of clinging to him indefinitely. Lisa's condition was deteriorating once more by 2022. She had been struggling with persistent discomfort and illnesses. She had to have a hysterectomy that year. The infections were so severe, according to the doctors, that they had no choice. According to her daughter, her mother never fully recovered from the procedure. Her spirit wasn't much stronger, and her body was exhausted. It was still too heavy with grief. At home on January 12, 2023, Lisa Marie passed out. She never woke up after being taken to the hospital. Later, the medical examiner verified that a tiny intestinal obstruction was the reason. According to her, her mother passed away from heartbreak. Too much suffering, too much loss, too much attempting to maintain strength when all was lost.